You're listening to E-Commerce Fastlane, Episode 3.
Welcome to E-Commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, launch, grow, and scale a wildly successful e-commerce company. Listen to real conversations with proven practical strategies and success stories. Learn how to generate more traffic, more sales, more profit, and customer lifetime value for your Shopify store. And now, your host and e-commerce entrepreneur, Steve Hutt.
Hey there, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Fastlane podcast. I'm Steve Hutt, and if this is your first time listening, this is an e-commerce show where we have honest and transparent conversations about building and thriving online with your Shopify store. New episodes are available each week in iTunes and Stitcher and SoundCloud and Spotify, and definitely available online at ecommercefastlane.com. On this week's episode, have you ever struggled with improving the conversion rate on your Shopify store? If so, this episode is definitely for you. You're going to learn the most effective way to retarget your site visitors and their journey of awareness and consideration for your products to a conversion, and ultimately retention with satisfied and loyal customers. This week, we speak with Reza, who is the co-founder and CEO of Shoelace.com. They're a very popular Shopify app and marketing platform. And he's going to talk about how to improve your Facebook ad funnels with what's called sequential retargeting. Reza, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Steve. Really excited to be here.
Great. Let me first share with the listeners, I think, kind of what retargeting actually is, because some people really don't know what it is. And I think it's important to kind of at least set the stage a bit and, why it's important for the growth of a Shopify store. For me, and I'm sure you can dig into it a little later too, is that for me, I find retargeting works kind of, best by it just keeps track of people who kind of visit a store, and then it kind of displays retargeting ads to them, kind of as they visit other stores online or through social media. It's almost like to me, it seems like a kind of a delicate reminder, because the internet is, as we all know, is quite a noisy place. And this kind of helps build brand awareness and kind of gets clicks and back to the site, and and obviously eventually sales conversions. That's the most important, and so retargeting, I guess, really in all essence kind of converts window shoppers kind of into buyers. I always I tell my merchants and clients that I'm involved with that approximately 2% of shoppers convert kind of on their first visit to an online store, but retargeting essentially kind of brings back that other 98%. They've kind of left, and like I said, it's a noisy part on the internet, and so the idea is with these reminders, you have an opportunity to be able to have them come back to your store, which I think is great. So let's talk about Shoelace then. So tell me about this platform. How was it born? Kind of its journey so far. I think you're helping, 5,000 or 6,000 Shopify store owners now. Just share with me and the audience kind of what you're all about.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. There's a much longer version to our origin story. I'll try to keep it short for the sake of your listeners. So our story began, we were 3 co-founders who started Shoelace. We all met at a startup in Toronto, and we were working very closely there. And at some point, we knew that we wanted to leave at some point and start our own company together. We didn't know what we were going to build, or we didn't have a specific idea in mind, but just that the 3 of us wanted to kind of, leave one day and start our own company together. And so one day in May 2015, we eventually, the 3 of us, quit our jobs together to go and try to figure out what we wanted to build, which kind of sounds a little bit crazy looking back into it, that we would leave our jobs without an idea. And I generally don't recommend that to people. But we had a very strong belief in each other as a team, as a founding team, that we felt like we had enough ability to build whatever we wanted, and kind of enough curiosity to go after interesting problems that we kind of felt safe doing it. And while we didn't have a specific idea, there was a theme that we were very interested in and very excited about. And this was this idea that you generally look at software products today, and they're generally like a self-serve tool that you have to log into and have a strategy in mind and learn how to use the tool, and then go back and kind of analyze the results of it. And it basically takes a lot of work to get value out of a software tool. And what we thought about it is like, if you fast forward into the future, 15, 20 years from today, surely at some point software will become intelligent enough to just create value for people without them having to do anything or learn anything. And so what if we apply this framework to the types of problems that we want to solve, and then kind of take this approach to the various experiments that we want to run in our quest for kind of finding a problem that we find is interesting. And so that was a framework. And we started experimenting with a few ideas around this, and I'll kind of spare you the details of our initial experiments, but we ultimately stumbled into this realization that retargeting, which is, as you described, this extremely powerful marketing strategy that I think anybody who has an online business should be doing. We realized that most people, while they were aware with the concept and they knew what it is, most people either weren't doing it at all or weren't doing a good job at it. And it was mostly as a result of kind of the learning curve of using the software tools, or basically trying to gain expertise in retargeting itself. And so in 2 months or so after we left our jobs, we said, what if we apply this framework to retargeting? What if we can create a software product that takes the role of the world's best retargeting expert and turns it into software so that we can create retargeting campaigns and retargeting strategies for people without them having to learn anything or do anything? And so that was the moment where kind of our aha moment post quitting our jobs, that we've basically not looked back since. We've just gone kind of deeper and deeper into this one very specific problem. And, we've now grown to a team of about 19 people. We're all based in Toronto. And like you said, working with thousands of e-commerce brands today. And so we've gotten a lot better at understanding what retargeting expertise means, and certainly made a lot of progress in turning that expertise into software.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a fantastic story. And you know what? It's like you really are solving a pain in the market, because, of the clients and merchants that, that I have dealt with in the past and currently, it's certainly a strategy, a digital marketing strategy that needs to be implemented, just because however you're driving traffic to a website, with that low typical conversion rate on the first touch point, it's just like, what are you doing to, like I said, delicately remind them that they should come back to the store and reevaluate the products. So I know at the top of the show, I, definitely, mentioned kind of, about retargeting and why I believe it was important. From your perspective, like why is it important? And do you have any stats and things that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd say, like, in the marketing stack of an e-commerce brand, retargeting, in my view, is a critical component. I think that, it's up there with, email marketing and other strategies that I believe is critical. And the reason is pretty simple. You touched on it earlier that, only about 2% of people that visit a site will end up making a purchase. And maybe some percentage higher than that may leave an email address through either like pop-up or signing up for a newsletter or a deal or promotion. But the kind of, let's say 90+% of people that leave without leaving any kind of contact information or way to get in touch with them, how do you get in front of those people again? These are people that have, in this world of trying to build a brand, any person who discovers your brand or stumbles into your website, these are very valuable people to stay in touch with. How do you get in touch with them again if they've not left an email address or anything like that? And so retargeting is a very important strategy on building relationships with those people that left your site without buying. And I think it's so important that I think it gets taken seriously, because if retargeting is this thing like, okay, let's just turn it on and put a huge budget on it and retarget everyone who leaves our site, that can have a negative effect on people who left your site without making a purchase, and maybe at some point they'll come back to buy from you again. But if you annoy them through retargeting ads that follow them everywhere they go and keep showing them the same ad over and over again for months on end, forget about kind of coming back to your brand. They're just going to start hating your brand and never wanting to see anything from you again. So I think it's important to think about, how do you take the context of the behavior that people did before they left their site and use that to tell a story that draws people back. So I think it's critical, but also extremely important to get it right. It's not, in my opinion, the type of thing to just kind of set it and forget it, because these are people who are going to the reputation of your brand, the experience of those prospects are going to be shaped by the way that these retargeting ad experiences are going to be like, and it's important to control those.
Yeah. I totally agree. The whole negative experience, because I can remember, way back, kind of before Shoelace and before kind of some other solutions out there that, you tend to go to a site and literally for weeks, if not months, the same ads, they weren't, there were more generic ads, more brand kind of specific ads. And I just found that, it is quite annoying. So
the funniest to me is the example of like, you go to a store, you buy the product. So, you've successfully completed a purchase from that brand. And then for 6 months later, you continue to see a retargeting ad for the very product that you bought. Like that to me is like the classic example of, what not to do in retargeting 101. I think people have gotten a little bit better at that in kind of excluding people that have bought, but still a lot of work to do in designing the experience to be better for everyone else.
Yeah, definitely. So inside Shopify, obviously there's a spot where you can add your Facebook tracking pixel, and it's kind of a recommended thing to do, and start building a custom audience. And there's a lot of people that, want to kind of DIY, kind of do it themselves. So like, how is Shoelace different maybe than going into Facebook and just kind of creating your own kind of retargeting campaigns on your own?
Yeah, I love this question. I mean, it comes up a lot, and the most common misconception is that we're in some ways that people would think that either I use my own Facebook pixel, my own Facebook ad account, or I'm using Shoelace, which is this like other way to do retargeting, and like it's just not the case. The way that the Shoelace experience works is that we plug into your own Facebook pixel, into your own Facebook ad account, and so the experience is like the easiest way that I usually explain it to people is like, imagine if you hired the world's best retargeting expert and you told them, hey, I want you to run all of my retargeting campaigns from end to end and manage it and make sure that we run the best possible type of retargeting we could for our store. And you hire that person, except instead of paying them the wage of a human, you pay them the wage of software, because we've taken that human role and turned it into software. And so the concept that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, including myself, I'm no different. I think a lot of people starting businesses experience the same thing, which is like the idea of like delegating work to other people on a team, or kind of not trying to do every single thing that needs to be done on your own. I think technology is arriving at a place where if you can delegate one item from your to-do list to somebody else, or a piece of software to do it, like that is the sort of thing that creates leverage for any business owner to do higher value work. And I think the question then becomes, if you do retargeting on your own, would you be able to do it better than, a retargeting expert that like is doing, is providing 100% full attention to the retargeting campaign? And the answer is generally, even if somebody does have the expertise themselves to like go in and do the best kind of retargeting on their own in Facebook, generally the conversations I have with even like advanced marketers who use Shoelace is like, yeah, but I just don't do it. I just don't go in and spend the time and create these funnels and like create the sequences and like, go in and see how things were doing. And so like, it's almost like, one use case is that if somebody doesn't feel like they have the expertise to go super deep into retargeting, we're a really valuable solution to kind of provide that expertise and do it for them. Or in the case where people, a lot of our customers are like, pro level advanced performance marketers who know what they're doing. And it's just kind of like, I just don't have time to go in and, make all these manual tweaks. And I don't think that Shoelace can do everything for me. If you were to tell me that like, you'll just like run my entire store, I don't know if I buy that. But I think the idea that, we can take one section, which is retargeting, and completely automate it so that you can at least delegate that piece away to us is kind of the selling point. And so the short of the answer is like the difference between using Shoelace and going directly to Facebook is that instead of kind of doing it yourself, you basically get the world's best retargeting expert to do it for you. And we wouldn't charge you the price of human, we charge you the price of software. It's kind of our selling point, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And it makes me think too, because there's a lot, it kind of adds on to that same question about, doing it yourself. And then, are there kind of any challenges that maybe a store owner might find if they were to implement kind of a retargeting campaign on their own, like maybe not using Shoelace?
Sure. Yeah, I think the biggest ones that come to me is like, trying to decide when is it time to go back into a retargeting campaign and like assess the performance of it and decide when to change something. Like you might have a spike in your traffic, and let's say for a couple of weeks you have roughly 5,000 visitors coming to your site every single day, and then 1 week you do some promotions and you just get like a flood of new visitors. You suddenly start to get 15,000 visitors coming to your site per day. At this moment, you kind of need to go in and adjust your retargeting campaigns to say, okay, my previous budget, if I had set that budget up correctly in the first place, is now probably too low to account for the increase in my new audience. And so I probably should go back and figure out what I should adjust my budget to accommodate for this increase in traffic. But is it just as simple as multiplying the budget by 3? What if the quality of the traffic that's coming in is not as high as the quality of the initial traffic, and that just tripling the budget might be a waste of money? And so like a lot of these types of questions of when is it time to kill a certain campaign that may not be working that well, or should I run a retargeting sequence that stages people from like 1 to 3 days and then 4 to 7 days, or should I split my funnel up from people that left off the homepage to people who looked at a product to people who added to cart? A lot of these like different questions, there's generally no 100% perfect answer. Like sometimes there is, but it can be very difficult to figure out from all the decisions that need to be made, what are the right ones to do, and just kind of like iterating on what's working and changing what isn't. I think because of these challenges, what I see most people doing over time is just kind of like setting up a dynamic product ad, letting it run, and kind of just forgetting about retargeting after that. And it's like that's the biggest shame really of like, because of the amount of daunting work involved to go and like set up perfect retargeting sequences, people generally resort to just having one DPA, letting that run forever, and then not having a very pleasant experience for people who keep getting exposed to the same ad over and over again, and then not fully optimizing on what the right perfect strategy could be and kind of iterating on those learnings. So I think, I'd summarize the biggest challenge as like, it is just hard and time consuming to go back and make iterations and changes on retargeting campaigns to arrive at whatever it means for your specific store to arrive at like the most perfect retargeting strategy possible. Because it's different for different brands. Like you might have a brand that sells fidget spinners and you might have a brand that sells like luxury jewelry. And, the retargeting strategy for one versus the other is just not the same. Like a fidget spinner might be an impulsive buy, so you might not want to retarget people for 3 weeks after they left your site and talk about like the brand and things like that. It might be a lot more product driven. But for example, you have a jewelry item or a luxury product, and this is much more of a considered purchase, and you think about maybe it does make sense to have a retargeting sequence show for multiple weeks as this prospect is like thinking about buying your product or not. And so like thinking about what is a lot of people like share advice with one another, like, hey, what are you doing for retargeting? What do you do for retargeting? It's like, I have a DPA ad. What do you do? And it's kind of like the questions of like, well, what is the average order value of your store? Is it a high average order value or is it a low one? Like, what are the conversion rates of your traffic? Are you driving high quality traffic or not so much? And like these types of questions to figure out what is the right type of retargeting for your store based on these variables. Like it's just a hard and time consuming thing to do. And it's challenging for anyone. And I think generally in the face of that big challenge, most people just don't do it. And I think, we can create a lot of value by automating a lot of that mundane work and baking a lot of the expertise that we learn from working with thousands of different brands and figuring out the answers to these tough questions, and then baking that expertise right into our product. So I think software ultimately can help solve a lot of these challenges that is just like daunting for us mere mortals to do all the time. So I think that's probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I agree, and what resonates a lot with me too is that with Shoelace, when you are literally like a retargeting expert for your Shopify store. I mean, you're right. There's some basic strategies and things that people can do, but I can see banner blindness and just kind of a poor user experience or customer experience, and just having only one dynamic product ad and kind of forgetting about it is just, it seems ridiculous to me. Which makes me think now is that I agree that your solution makes a lot of sense than kind of the DIY kind of approach, because you folks have doubled down and really focusing on truly being experts in kind of in the retargeting space. I see the platform kind of lately has kind of been updated to include some things that are called journey campaigns and nudge campaigns. So if you can take a few minutes and just kind of share what a journey campaign is and what a nudge campaign is, and kind of and how it, why it's important and how it can help a Shopify store owner.
Yeah, 100%. Sure. So journeys are very, very, very core to the Shoelace retargeting experience. Nudges are kind of a complement to it. So I'll start with journeys. And so the concept of journeys is not new. We didn't invent it by any means. If you think about the email marketing category, this idea of like nurturing a prospect through a sequence of email messages based on where they came through in the funnel is just like kind of the gold standard of great email marketing. And our view is that a lot of those same points should be applied to retargeting, and that the right way to do retargeting is, instead of somebody, when they leave your site, instead of having them see the same ad over and over again, which, as you mentioned, cause like banner blindness and ad fatigue and just an annoying experience, instead we should make retargeting engaging and have people go through a sequence of ad experiences after they leave their site. And I think this becomes especially true when you think about the social ad experience. Like when you're showing ads on Facebook and Instagram, these are ads that are blending in with the content that people are generally experiencing as they scroll through the feed. And so you kind of want to adopt this idea of like standing out by blending in, almost, of like you want your ad content to be the same experience to a certain extent of the rest of the content in your prospect's feed. And one of the components of that is like, if you just think about yourself as an Instagram user or as a Facebook user, the last time that you scrolled through your feed, as soon as you see an item that you've already seen in your feed, how quickly are you scrolling past that item, or like closing your app to say, okay, there's nothing more new here, I'm done with this. And you're kind of, every time you open one of these social apps, you're looking for a new set of experiences, a new set of content that you haven't seen before. And I think it's important as marketers to think about retargeting that way and show your brand experience in that way. And so journeys is basically just our take on sequential retargeting, which is just this idea of taking people through a sequence of ad experiences. And what makes the product experience special is that we've not created a platform where people come in and create a journey themselves. Our entire product experience, again, is exactly like it would be if you hired someone to do it for you. So when somebody signs up to Shoelace, a journey sequence gets created for them with all of the ads ready to go, with all of the budget and audience targeting, and just setting the whole thing up. And all they receive is an email or text message with a preview to this entire journey sequence that they can edit to make any little changes if they want to, or just push a one big green button to launch the journey. And so that's kind of very, very core to our retargeting experience. And journeys are meant for people who to experience immediately for the days or weeks after they leave your site, depending on the type of store. And so somebody will leave your site, and then for the next, let's say, 14 days or 7 days or 30 days, they'll go through a sequence of different ad experiences, and then it will stop, which is an important part of making a good retargeting experience. Like, you do not want to just keep showing people ads over and over again forever. At some point, you're going to get diminishing return, and then it's just a waste of money and annoying people. And so for journeys, depending on the type of store and depending on the type of product, we may end the journey after like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or more. And then we kind of just don't bother those prospects anymore. We don't waste ad budget on prospects that haven't converted, and we don't annoy prospects who aren't interested in buying right now. And what nudges are for, which is the other thing that you talked about, our nudge campaigns, is this idea that when you have your Facebook pixel installed in your store, you're going to collect audiences for up to 180 days of people that have been on your site, and all variety of different things that they did while they were on your store. Nudges are meant to gently remind those people that haven't been back to your site in a really long time that, like, hey, we exist. We might do a nudge that talks about a new set of arrivals or bestsellers, or like a cool like lifestyle video or something like that. And nudges are generally not kind of as ROI positive as journeys are. Sometimes they do well, but not nearly as well as journeys, obviously. But there's still an important way to like build relationships with those prospects, and every once in a while have them come back. But they're also pretty capital efficient, because when we run a nudge campaign, we're not running it perpetually the way that a journey would run. A nudge campaign lasts like 2 days. So we might target a really big audience, like 180-day people, but it only runs for 2 days and then it stops. So the amount of money that gets spent towards a nudge campaign is very contained, and it is truly meant to just be a gentle reminder that nurtures some of the prospects who might be interested to come back and buy from your store. So those are the two differences between journeys and nudges.
Yeah, that's really informational, and I totally agree with you. It's like the journey campaign is, and I like the fact that you're able to offer kind of unique kind of ad experiences as the customer kind of goes through the funnel, of awareness of a brand, and then to an ultimate conversion. And it's like we said, it's a noisy internet out there, and so it's nice to be able to have when people are leaving, like we said before, 98% out of 100 people, 98 out of 100 people are leaving the store. And if you can have a great ad experience through this journey campaign, multiple ads in that journey, that's fantastic. And you're right. With nudges, I think it's a great concept to be able to, with a low ad budget, being able to, for a couple days, delicately remind them. I think it's a great idea. One thing I find too that's important is there's a technology stack that I find a lot of successful Shopify store owners are using, and obviously, retargeting is, as a strategy and a tactic is important, but the tech stack of other things, being email marketing, and there's lots of other things. Can you kind of share some of the connections that Shoelace has made with kind of other kind of popular Shopify apps? Because it seems like it's you're building almost like an ecosystem, so to speak, of connections, even though your core strength is retargeting, but you're connecting to lots of other very popular apps that I see being used by a lot of successful merchants. So maybe you can share kind of what your plan is and what you're currently doing with that.
Sure. Yeah. Our integrations are among the things that I'm most excited about that we've been up to. And I think they've really created a lot of value in both the retargeting campaigns that we create, but also in just unlocking more value from some of the existing tools and apps that our merchants have been using. So they've been a really great addition to our retargeting stack. And I can mention a few of them here. We have a lot of different integrations. One example is an integration that we have with MailChimp, where every time you send out an email newsletter, we automatically create a retargeting ad for people that received the email, who may have opened it or may have clicked it, and take the content of the email newsletter that you had sent out and pull that into a retargeting ad, so that simultaneously when people have received that newsletter, for a couple of days after they've received the newsletter, they're kind of that newsletter is getting turbo boosted through retargeting ads that are sharing the same content from the newsletter, but also targeting the same people that receive that newsletter. So that's one example. Another one is the integrations that we've built with I think basically all the major product review apps, like Stamp.io and Judge Me and Yotpo, and basically takes those 5-star reviews that people have left on your store and turns them into retargeting ads that we use in, for example, one of the ad experiences in a journey that people would go through is like showing a 5-star review of the product that the person may have seen. So it's really cool to be able to pull those 5-star review content and turn it into a retargeting ad. For people who have like a shoppable Instagram gallery with an app like 460, for example, we take the shoppable gallery with all the photos that have been tagged in them, and then use that content as one of the ad experiences, mapped with the products that are in them and what products people viewed when they were on the site. And a bunch more like this that are kind of both powering our nudges and our journeys, where things like the 460 ad or the product review ads. These are ad contents that we would use as one of the different creatives inside of the journey experience. And in cases like the MailChimp, or for example, we have an integration with Back in Stock, which is really cool, where Back in Stock is an app that if a product goes out of stock and a prospect gets, enters their email to get notified when the item is back in stock, they'll receive an email to remind them of that. And our integration takes that same product and the same prospects that sign up to be notified, and it'll also show them a retargeting ad, letting them know about the product that's come back in stock. And so that's an example of like a nudge campaign that is boosted through an integration. And we have a lot more work here, a lot more exciting integrations that we're working on. But a very big part of the value creation of Shoelace is your ability to pull in a lot of the different marketing apps that you're using and use that to kind of supercharge your retargeting to really do cool things.
Mm-hmm. I am excited for your roadmap. I just appreciate kind of what you currently do, and I do recommend Shoelace to a lot of my merchants, and they are in fact, using either MailChimp or Klaviyo or some kind of email marketing solution, and they all have the usual suspects when it comes to product and kind of company reviews, be it Yotpo or Judge Me or Stamp.io, as you mentioned. And I didn't know about the connection of Instagram with the 460 kind of app. And I think that's fantastic, considering that's a big marketing driver today is Instagram, especially in fashion brands with micro influencers and just that whole growth. And that's another topic for sure on another day. And I guess based on the show today, it's like, to me, I'm sure even the listeners, we all agree that retargeting definitely is kind of a necessary kind of digital marketing strategy, and I think we all agree now that it needs to be done by an expert. And in your particular case with Shoelace, because you are really doubling down and you're letting software and the best software make that decision for the ads and all that. And I think that's fantastic. Do you have any kind of closing comments that you'd like to leave with our visitors today?
Yeah. I think I would reiterate kind of the two principles of retargeting that we think about. So like our entire philosophy and outlook towards retargeting is rooted in two concepts. One is that we think retargeting should be sequential, which means that when somebody leaves your site, instead of seeing the same ad over and over again, they should go through a sequence of ad experiences that evolve over time. For a better ad experience and to engage with people in the social environments that they're seeing these ads in. And we think that's really important. And the other is that we think that retargeting should be funnel driven. So if somebody leaves your website and they just basically bounced off of the homepage without even looking at a product, that person left your store at a very different stage of the funnel than somebody who, let's say, added an item to cart and left without buying. And we think that retargeting should be catered to, this aspect and be funnel driven to the extent that, it caters to people based on where they left, at what stage in the funnel they left your site. And we think those two are really important. And I think the final thing I'd add that kind of is related to those two is that when you start to think about retargeting in this funnel driven way, then the idea of measuring the success of retargeting starts to become a lot more nuanced than just kind of return on ad spend. For example, if you have the budget and if you are interested in trying to nurture prospects who left directly off of the homepage, and you want to try to do some initiatives that are driving people that left without even looking at a product, if you're interested in trying to do something to move those people to the next stage of the funnel and do that through retargeting, then the likelihood of those people resulting in really high return on ad spend is just very low. Like if you run a retargeting sequence for people that left off the homepage, the way to measure the success of that campaign is not to say how much return on ad spend did that bring me. The question is like, how many people did we move to the next stage of the funnel? How many people who left off of the homepage, how many of those people came back and looked at least one product? Or how many of those people maybe added a product to cart? And I get that, like, for smaller stores who don't necessarily have a budget to think about marketing campaigns that are not driven like purely by return on ad spend, it's maybe not an initiative to do. But if you want to start getting a little bit more sophisticated about retargeting and making it funnel driven and thinking about, okay, we've got our add to cart funnel, it's working great. We got our people who looked at a product that seems to be converting really well. And then thinking about going higher up to people who may have like left off of the homepage, and thinking about how do you measure the success of that campaign in a way that's not purely return on ad spend. Or, for example, if you start to retarget people who have completed a purchase. So earlier we mentioned, like, you may want to exclude those people away from seeing a retargeting ad, but actually your past purchasers are a really strong audience for you to come back and buy again. And so I think splitting things up into a funnel that way and making the ad experiences be sequential, and then measuring those results based on which stage of the funnel you're focused on, is kind of the short version of everything we know about retargeting and what we think is really important. So whether you trust Shoelace to do that for you, or you kind of do it in-house, I think we're big believers that a sound retargeting strategy should be based on those concepts.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Reza, this show has been personally very educational, very actionable. I hope the listeners also it resonates with them too, because it's such an important strategy to be implemented, and it sounds like Shoelace definitely is the solution that can help them. And it's certainly worth trying. If you're not doing any retargeting, it's quite simple to get into the App Store and kind of do your thing. So can you tell me how people can learn more about Shoelace and maybe adding it to their store?
Yeah, totally. So we're available on the Shopify App Store. People can find us on shoelace.com. And I think that there might be a special offer for listeners at e-commerce Fastlane. Is that true?
Yeah, so we're going to go to ecommercefastlane.com/shoelace, and you've been gracious enough to offer a 10% off for the first 12 months for those that are decide to use Shoelace. So you can kind of claim that offer. You can just mention Fastlane when you sign up, and looks like Reza and his team will be able to help you out.
Would be more than happy to, of course.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking time out of your day. And we look forward to maybe interviewing you again in the near future with more updates on your roadmap. And best of luck to you. And thanks so much.
I appreciate that. Thanks so much, Steve.
Have a great day.
You as well.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation today with Reza from Shoelace. This concept of sequential retargeting is really exciting when you think about it. It makes a lot of sense. Customers are on a journey of discovery, and retargeting should take these site visitors or these prospects kind of through a sequence of kind of ad experiences after they leave a site, versus maybe showing the same ad over and over and over again. You get this kind of ad fatigue happening, and I'm sure that we've definitely have all experienced that. I also hope you've learned that retargeting, should be funnel driven, based on what behavior the visitor did kind of before they left the website. So that's interesting learnings, I think, for all of us today. Literally, when I think about it, Shoelace is kind of like almost like hiring kind of the world's best kind of retargeting expert, and kind of having that person kind of manage kind of all of your retargeting, for your Shopify store. It's like the collective kind of expertise that they've acquired, by kind of being focused on this one particular problem, and doing it for thousands of other Shopify stores. They've kind of baked a lot of this kind of expertise that they've gained over the years right into their product. So I think that's pretty cool. So if you're not doing retargeting, or you feel that maybe your retargeting campaigns are, not as effective as maybe you would hope they are, or you're not following these kind of journeys and nudge campaigns that we kind of chatted about, maybe you should just give Shoelace a spin, at least for a few months, 2 or 3 months. And, I have many clients and merchants who absolutely love this solution, and it works extremely well for them. And, since you are a listener of this episode, Reza, who's the co-founder again, he has been very grateful and is offering a 10% off for a full 12 months. So it's a nice little savings. It'll help you convert a lot more customers, and, it certainly will reduce your cost per acquisition, which is great. Well, Reza, thanks again for kind of offering this deal to our listeners for that next year. Really appreciate it. As I've mentioned kind of in previous episodes, this show is new, and all support is kind of greatly appreciated. So if you haven't already done so, if you could, take a few minutes to subscribe, on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. It only takes a moment on your phone to subscribe, and I'd be so grateful if you could kind of give the show a rating and a review. these first 8 weeks of any new show, it's extremely crucial for the visibility and the traction on iTunes, and then kind of the eventual kind of discoverability kind of in the new and noteworthy section. So leaving a star review is kind of a great way to kind of, I guess, show your appreciation, for the continued production of this show. And, thanks again for being a loyal listener of this show. I really appreciate it. Now, on deck for next week, I have a chat with Recharge Payments about, how you can take products that you currently sell and how you can create a subscription model through your Shopify store. It's a really interesting topic. It's pretty obvious that, returning shoppers are good for business and kind of increase profits and stuff like that, which is, why we're kind of all fighting hard for kind of customer loyalty. But, every time a shopper has to kind of check out, there's always this risk that maybe this sale won't go through. And the idea of a subscription model, it kind of gets all the benefits of a returning customer, but you have a lot greater security, I guess, so to speak, so that you don't have to take a chance on every payment because they've kind of committed to a monthly or a yearly or whatever the different plans are that you could potentially create. It's really is quite an informative episode to see, how you can kind of get involved with a subscription model and, enjoy some of that kind of predictable revenue. So thank you for taking time out of your day today or your commute and listening to the show. I really, truly appreciate you and kind of your desire to level up your skills and your knowledge with e-commerce and with the Shopify platform. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week and take care.